June 1st, 2024. We are online in the morning. I don't know, have we ever been online in the morning? This might be the first time we actually get up early enough to commit to doing a podcast because I'm away for a few days and we couldn't get on the normal days. And it is the NBA Finals, even though it's still 5 days away, 5 days of rest. Yeah, it's a bit interesting how you're just getting some extra rest because the conference finals were really not as exciting as we had hoped, right?
I think it's interesting that you think any of our listeners are that invested in our personal lives that they're like, no, it's totally fine, guys. I'm glad that you're still able to record. This is great. You've got to know our analytics say it's all about viewership in the early part of the
Dude,
video. This is not what we
stick with
want to
the
see.
theme here. We've got a million people watching right now. Get back on
Oh,
topic.
my bad. Oh, I forgot that I was delusional for a second there. Yeah, look, clearly we can make that joke because we had a gentleman's sweep and a sweep, respectively, in the conference finals. I had people in my life kind of asking, well, what do you think the Wolves are going to do? And, I actually did expect them to maybe win game five and then Dallas takes it in game six. And then obviously they just get blown out. And probably indicative of the issues with the Wolves across the board. It's not often that you talk about a playoff team that makes the conference finals and you say, um, you've got to win at home. Like that's their goal moving forward. They had a record of I believe 3-5 at home, and if they had a better record, the Wolves are in the final. I believe I would say quite confidently there. So interesting on that front. I think I've already talked about my dislike of Cat and how that's clearly the piece that they've got to try to move off of.
Is Cat getting traded? I can't see them moving him. Um, Even though they could or should move him, I can't see them moving him. It's like let's run this back and let's be disappointed next season that maybe we still also don't get to the finals again. I don't know, man. That's my vibe.
Yeah, I think it's such a large contract that it's obviously restricting a lot of their cap movements. And with this new CBA, it'll be interesting to see how the first offseason goes because I actually don't know if we'll have a lot of action in the offseason too, because the mid-season trade deadline was indicative of the fact that it's a lot more restrictive now to move players, move contracts, move picks. So moving someone like Cat, you then have to go straight to the extremes, and you're like, oh well, will it go to Brooklyn and they take Mikal Bridges back? But I don't know why Brooklyn would want Cat. Do they take Trae Young from Atlanta? But again, I don't. And that's probably the big theme that comes out of this. You kind of know what you're getting with Cat. He is, 26, 28 range. And he consistently has high upside and low downside. And in the playoffs, it seems to be that you get one good Cat game and 2 to 3 bad Cat games. And for someone who's taking up almost 50 million on your cap per year, that's not a great position for your team to be stuck in.
I think Cat unfortunately, I guess, remains with the label that he doesn't show up in clutch. I think this was evident before Ant Edwards became the number one option in Minnesota, and it was all about Cat, and they couldn't get out of the first round, and they were sort of somewhat competitive, they're on the up, but at Cat as a number one option, that was clear that he wasn't really built that way. And then we get to the conference finals here. He has one good showing, I guess, one reasonable showing, and sort of three shocking games. So I don't know. I think definitely there's definitely a motivation that to probably shop him, but I don't think they're going to get anything in return for him that's worth letting him go. And to run it back
Mm.
and win another 50 games or so, probably not a bad thing. But at this point, I don't know. Maybe they need to. I don't know. Maybe Jaden McDaniels is that option that that will continue to develop, that will then push Cat down that food chain in Minnesota. That might be a good thing for the T-Wolves. Yeah, that's a potential crystal ball situation, but yeah,
That's our off-season content. Let's park this actually because that's our off-season content. We've got the NBA Finals. We have the fifth seed Dallas Mavericks playing the number one Boston Celtics. Unsurprising that the Boston Celtics made it there, but I feel like if you ask people at the start of the season who's making the NBA Finals, Dallas was not on the tip of everybody's tongue. And Dallas have done it consistently in 6 games or less, and so have the Celtics. Actually, they haven't dropped 2 games yet. But I do feel like if Boston were to win the NBA Finals, they're not going to get through Dallas as easily as they have the Eastern Conference foes. But is this Luka's time? Right, we've talked about this, and we're now down to the final two. It's Tatum versus Luka, or Tatum and Kyrie versus Luka and Brown, and we've got that spicy Kyrie slash Porzingis angle. Is Porzingis healthy? I mean, it probably seems like he is. There's a lot of big questions that go into this, and so instead of doing a straight out prediction now, instead of just hedging it, what topic do you want to talk about first? Do you want to go straight to health? Because obviously Derek Lively has potentially some concussion issues because he took another knock to the head in back-to-back games of his playing, but a week off is potentially generous. Porzingis with the calf issue, is he ready to go? And that would be the health topic. Or is it straight to the superstars?
Look, I don't know about Derek Lively. I know he got the knock to the head in that game, but he remained in the game. So I don't think that it's going to be a significant issue, especially with 5 days of rest, give or take, for him to be back on the floor. Plus, he's a young fella in that sort of sense. I think the biggest injury question mark is Porzingis, 100%. And, it's everything's tracking towards that he will come back, but will he be effective? Again, no shock horror here. Game two, he limps off the court again, and he's got a sore legs again, and he's done for the rest of the series. So, obviously Boston fans are hoping that's not the case, but that's exactly sort of what the Mavs dealt with when they had him. And sort of every other team that sort of had him in that sense has dealt with that sort of at some point or another. So, yeah, look, no one knows sort of how he's going to shake out. He probably knows himself only how he feels really, and he's crossing his fingers himself probably that he doesn't have an awkward landing or bump knees or something along those lines in that sense. So, yeah, but look, I guess on the good news there, I guess all the other key players right now are healthy. There would be some level of asterisks you would feel here that the Celtics do not want that if somehow one of the Mavs players did get injured, especially let's say Luka and Luka is not 100% either. Okay, so there's probably some level of reality there that he has been playing with sort of I think it's sore knee and ankle as well. I think opposite knee and ankle or something along those lines. Or Kyrie sort of goes down with something. Because remember, Kyrie has had his injury sort of concerns over the years. He's had a good year this year, but he has had injury concerns throughout his career as well at points. So it's it would be a really unfortunate asterisk if Boston was to then win a title and go, well, we didn't have Jimmy Butler. Yeah, we had the Knicks all go down, and then Tyrese Halliburton also went down, and it was just a very fortunate run. Everyone fell down, and we just got to finish line. Steve Bradbury, right? Is that what? That's the name that we've been talking about for a few months now.
Yeah, look, maybe we're about to witness another fantasy finals where the team that was leading the entire season ends up falling apart at the end. I think we're in agreement. That feels like it's a lot more of a reality on the table than the other way. And the asterisk is great because obviously I don't know if you've seen this float around, but Denver's championship run last season, which was a little sketchy because they played pretty low seeds and end up going against Miami. In the last round, which is the 8 seed, and obviously Jimmy Butler being a little bit hobbled by that point, and then being unable to go back to back. Now Denver's kind of copped that, and their championship has a little bit of an asterisk on it, which we always can find an asterisk on championships. But for Boston, you're right. If Dallas for any reason is not full strength, they didn't play anyone at full strength. Like their entire path to the Eastern Conference, not finals, but the finals itself. Tyrese isn't there. Donovan's not there. Butler's not there. And that's not even including the auxiliary players around that. So it is pretty crazy to think that Bradbury, for those that aren't aware, it's the ice skater who was in last place.
Google it. I just realized I talked about the Knicks. It was the Pacers that took out the Knicks. But they obviously all went down with injury. It was everyone fell over in the East here, and the team that won 60 teams just just skated their way through. Is that what we're saying? That's and I love the graphics. I think on social media has tried to illustrate that. But I think there's some merit in that sort of reality that the Mavs have been tested. Yeah, they've been tested. They've
Hmm.
played three out of the top four teams in the West getting to the finals this year, and they've shown their worth. Yeah, they've arrived here at the finals. Have the Celtics been tested? Probably not. They've faced a few games where they've, had hot shooting on the other team, or they play poorly in themselves and they've righted the ship in that sort of sense. But have they truly been pushing a seven-game series? They have not right now. And if they are, that there's some level of if there. If they are here, how will they respond? Because we talked about Cat maybe not displaying that clutch as a gene in that sense. Does Tatum have that or not either? And if he doesn't, then who does? Yeah, is it Jaylen Brown? I don't know. Like, are we all talking about Jaylen Brown in 2 weeks' time that he's now a Finals
Is he the
MVP?
Finals MVP?
Mm, mm,
I obviously that's a talking point in itself. I guess when you talk about being tested, when we track back here a little bit, Dallas does go up against the Clippers, and Kawhi's not at full strength. And the Clippers are always an interesting matchup because they had three superstars that can go off against them. And obviously, Harden had a game that was quite competitive. So did Paul George. So that's an adaptation in itself. Then they play the young OKC team, with Shea obviously going toe to toe with Luka, and on 3-point shooting being a really big focus of their unit. And then Minnesota. I know that Minnesota basically got gentleman's sweep and they lost the last game by a large margin. The first three games were one possession games with some calls that you could make a case and say if it goes the other way, something different happens. They were a close series, a very physical series, interior wise as well. So Dallas has really had to adapt to a variety of things. And you look at their lineup, Gafford and Lively clearly are a front court that's quite formidable. And so going up against Boston, that'll be an interesting matchup for Boston. They've got Kyrie and Luka who run at the guards position. But then you've got Derrick Jones Jr., who out of nowhere is like shooting 50% from three, right? And same for PJ Washington, the same for Josh Green. Like Dallas looks really well constructed and they have strengths in pretty much every area. Boston's strength is they will take 40 to 53s in a game and they will hit enough of them that they'll probably beat you. But they can also lock you down on defense. Those two things matching up will be interesting because can Drew and Derek White contain Luka and Kyrie? Well, no one's contained Luka at this point, and when Kyrie's cooking, no one contains him either. So is that going to actually cancel out? You look at the big situation. If Kristaps isn't ready to go, then it's Xavier Tillman and it's Al Horford. Well, I feel like the front court advantage goes straight to Dallas on that one. And then if we're really just going to come down to who can shoot better threes, then at this point, I feel a lot more confident about Dallas's threes because the thing with Dallas, opposed to Boston, Boston's two main ball handlers aren't good 3-point shooters. So it's only on the kick out or the driving kick out that they're going to end up with a 3-pointer. Whereas Dallas, if you don't want to double Luka, he'll hit the three against you. And if you do double Luka, then he gives an easier three to someone else. So I'm liking Dallas. I'm getting a Luka jersey. I reckon I'm ready to go.
So what's your pick here? What's your pick here? I feel like you're arriving at your Dallas pick here. Get that 77 jersey on. How many games, man? If that's the way you're going.
I'm almost thinking, do I get a wolf tattoo? Do I really go in, like all in for this Luka bandwagon? I think it'll be 6 games. I think when you reference the lack of testing that Boston's had, the only test that they had, funnily enough, was Indiana without Tyrese. Indiana shot incredibly well against them and played a really high tempo, right? And Boston had to match that, and Boston had to do a bit of lockdown D to get themselves back in the game. But that was their biggest test. I don't know what Boston is going to pose towards Luka and the Mavs that requires them to adapt, right? I think the series is going to go to Dallas's tempo, which, that's Boston being reactive. And this Kristaps X factor, which I know he's legitimately an X factor and really fascinating, but you're right. He could have a really good game 1, Dallas loses, and then he's got calf soreness and he's out for game 2. And then it's a 6-game series instead of a 7-game series because the teams are reset. I'm going Dallas in 6.
Dallas in 6. You talked about a wolf tattoo. Why a wolf tattoo? You talking about like a horse
Luka's
tattoo?
got a wolf tattoo.
Oh,
Luka's got a wolf tattoo right there. Yeah.
Why not just the Mavs logo, man? That would have made more sense. I like, why wolf tattoo? You going for the T-Wolves, are you? And like, it's look, I actually thought about this since the series closed out, and I knew we were gonna come online a couple of days earlier than usual. And I was like, which way am I gonna go here, man? So let me illustrate you a scenario here. Okay, let me illustrate you the thought process I arrived at here. When the Celtics made the finals against the Warriors, I actually picked the Celtics. I picked Marcus Smart to win, um, obviously NBA Finals MVP, and he didn't have a very good showing. He's gone now, out of Boston. And I actually put some money down. I remember we did that recording, and I
Oh,
went and put some money down. His odds were quite long. I was like, why not? And clearly that didn't pay out yet, but that's okay. But I have gone for the Celtics in that sense in the past before when they've arrived at this stage. They've been conference finalists, what, 6 out of 8 years now, and as much as they sort of haven't been huge fans of them, especially after that pick didn't really pan out. You can't argue the fact that they continue to win games. Yeah, they continue to win
hmm.
games. They continue to upgrade their roster. And, Marcus Smart is gone. Derek White is in. Drew Holiday, an NBA champion, joined the roster. Porzingis is an X factor if we're going to be optimistic in a very positive way in that sort of sense. And I think Jaylen Brown is coming into his own. Jaylen Brown is coming into his own, and Tatum is still Tatum, man. He's like a all NBA player, regardless, I guess, if he doesn't really have the clutch gene in him in that sort of sense. And then I guess on the other hand here, I'm like, well, you know what? Let's be clear. I've talked about Luka being the GOAT. And here he is, right? Here he is. And, you might want to expound this. We can expound this a little bit more as well. But here he is at the NBA Finals. We talked about record becomes important now. This is a legacy-defining series for Luka Doncic. Everyone else, it really, whatever. Yeah, it's a great achievement. It'll be the pinnacle of the career, or to get one under the belt of Kyrie to get his second. But for Luka, this is a legacy-defining series here. And for him to remain on a sort of, I guess, the inside track to be in the GOAT conversation, he needs a W. Yeah, that's as far as I'm concerned, that's what it is. Okay, and obviously last week I think we talked about quality and quantity and perfection, and that's sort of what's going to be coming into play here. And I guess I'm sort of like I said, man, I sort of tossed and turned. I don't know which way to go here. I was like, and I'm going to say, even though I would love Luka to win it, okay, and I probably would feel like I'll probably like the Mavs to win it. Yeah, it's not a. I think there's more positive storylines there. Yeah, Kyrie gets a second. It'd be fun to see. We're already seeing. I don't know about you on social media, but all the now it wasn't like Kyrie needed LeBron. It was LeBron needed Kyrie. It's so funny the stuff that fucking circulates. On social media, it's crazy stuff, right? But that's just funny already. That it's already started to circulate now. As soon as they sort of closed out that series, bang, it was hit the publish button for these people. Um, but I'm saying that the Celtics are gonna win now. This is their year. Banner 18. All right, I'm going Celtics here. So we can have a lively debate over the next week or two. That we're gonna go different picks. I'm gonna say maybe I arrived too early a few years ago when they came up across against the Warriors. Three-time Warriors, yeah, three-time champion Warriors at that point. Even though they were sort of a bounce back season with Wiggins in that lineup, years ago now. And I'm saying that the key is shutting down Kyrie. Let Luka cook, yeah. But if he's got no one to cook with, well, hell, if he can score 45 a game for this series, then maybe they still remain in a chance. And they have the right personnel to shut down Kyrie with two all defensive second team players, guards, yeah, not one this time, yeah, two, okay, that are sort of much more ready for this assignment. And I think my pick, and I've made some interesting picks maybe this postseason, in these playoffs, sorry, that have sort of gone wayward because of injuries. and maybe Kristaps is going to throw my pick out the window by game two. We saw Cavs, man. Okay, and I'm going to say then the next narrative will then become, well, maybe Luka can't be the GOAT. Maybe now he now needs to have volume and quantity to then be in that conversation one day. Um, and that's not necessarily the narrative I want for him, but I'm saying the Celtics here will get this job done in seven. I'm going to go seven. I'm going to go seven here.
Okay.
Why not? Why not? I've gone seven all the way around here. Seven, all right? Celtics in
I
seven.
think I want to counter the let Luca cook philosophy because the issue of letting Luca cook is his playmaking ability is where it hurts you. So what you're kind of suggesting is either doubling Kyrie deliberately or just paying single coverage and relying on your defenders and letting Luca cook. As a team, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I'm really looking forward to game one to see what they actually do defensively against Dallas because the power of Luca is the step back three potential is incredibly real, or the step back jumper stuff is incredibly real. So he'll beat you off the dribble and he might just pull that out. But if he beats you off the dribble, the lob threat becomes a reality, but the finishing around the rim becomes a reality. Luca's very complete in that essence, right? And so what you're suggesting is that Luka has 40 and 10 assists, and the 10 assists go to Gafford and Lively, and that's it. And the three-point shooting gets taken away, which probably is the strategy that Celtics need to take. Don't let Kyrie cook. Don't let Derek Jones and PJ Washington get going, and you might be okay defensively. I think Luka's got it. I think Luka's got the package here. I think Luka has the ability to do it. And the issue will be Tatum and Brown will get suckered in to trading threes of Luka. Right, I saw it a little bit in the OKC series, but SGA can do it. Right, when the game's getting out of hand and someone hits a three, SGA comes back and hits it.
I think the Mavs would be happy if they got sucked in to that sort of strategy, but the Celtics are deep, 6-man deep, going all the way to Al Horford, who I think last series made like 7 threes in one of those games, and they obviously led the league in three-point shooting, number one offense, and they just have multiple options. Yeah, we're talking about, finals MVP here. Hell, pick anyone but Tatum. Yeah, that's the potential reality here because again, it's they're a deep team and that's why they got to 64 wins this year. I think it would be Joe Mazzulla's job here if he allowed them to trade that sort of game plan with Dallas.
I just want to get in here a little bit. Regular season records are really deceptive, okay? The reason why I'm saying that is because they did win 64 games this season. Yeah? We're in agreement?
Yeah.
They play more games against the Eastern Conference, which we kind of just saw is not the stronger conference. So there are, just based off scheduling, easier wins, right? When you think about the worst teams in the East, Washington, Detroit, right? Even Brooklyn to a degree. I know that they were a little bit more competitive, but the bottom is the bottom when it comes to that. And when they get to play those teams 4 or 5 times, that's a lot easier to rack up wins than going up against the Western teams that are at the bottom, right? And I'm not saying that San Antonio is substantially better, but they were spicy. They took a game off the defending champs at the end of the season when they needed it. They clearly were a little bit more competitive. Houston didn't even make the playoffs, and they were quite spicy all season. Their record is inflated, right? And Dallas wasn't exactly that much further off. I'm trying to pull it up, but it's why we need a stat man. Dallas finished with 50 and 32 in a Western Conference that they just proved they are the best team in the Western Conference. I think the record, yes, it got them there, and it's going to secure them home court advantage. But Dallas has now proven as well they don't care. The home court advantage thing seems to be disappearing a little bit too. Maybe it's because of threes. Maybe it's because, I don't know, the home court isn't loud enough anymore. I don't know. But Dallas will win a game at Boston. They have to, obviously, for my prediction to come true, but they'll win a game at Boston. I don't think that, Boston loves dropping a game at home too.
Look, I think you talked about Luka getting 40 and 10 assists. And if you're going to throw those lobs as assists there, that's another 20 points there. So that's 60 points now on the board. Okay, if you keep Kyrie to a manageable 20, that's only 80 points. See, that's the key. And then add some other sort of players getting a few buckets here and there. Let's say they get up to 100. Okay, I think if you're going against the Celtics, as much as scoring has been suppressed in the playoffs at the moment, which makes sense, yeah, because defense cranks up and you play the same opponent up to 7 times in a row in that sort of sense, that they're going to need to find more offense. And that's why they can't let Kyrie get 30. Yeah, they can't let Kyrie get 36 and Luka get 36 like the T-Wolves let happen in Game 5 here. As much as the T-Wolves is the number one defense, okay, that was not the game plan that was going to translate into a W. And there was probably a little bit, and maybe this is probably going to give you some nightmares, but there's probably a little bit of deja vu when Luka was cooking that first quarter like he did against the Suns, wasn't it? He just came out and just sort of couldn't miss, and he has that talent. No one's arguing that. But man, look, I wouldn't be shocked if Mavs jump out and do grab it in 6, and like I said, man, I'm probably somewhat deep down like rooting for them. You'd like to have the chat that, hey, he's 1/6 of the way now to that potential that this is the GOAT that we have proclaimed. I guess I have at least proclaimed
You proclaimed.
for a
Yeah,
year.
yeah.
You'll jump on board at some point, okay?
I'll
But
jump
then,
on
but
board.
but
That
the
wolf
point will
tattoo.
be, but then now will the narrative be about statistics, like how much does he average rebounds and stats? And it's probably that one day
But
he'll
that's
average a triple double too, like Westbrook and Jokic
to
nearly did, in that sort of sense.
to in, to intersect it there a little bit. That is sometimes the statistical argument between Jordan and LeBron. Like Jordan has higher averages on his points per game and field goal, and that's the thing. The longevity stat is a really impressive one, but if Michael Jordan maintained that level of productivity, well, he will beat LeBron because he was averaging more points per game. Like there's those kind of
Well,
elements.
that's
Luka obviously will go the Michael Jordan route if he wins. Well, we talked about this last week. I'm glad that we did because his loss will put him on the LeBron track, and how many can he get? And it'll always be a little bit tarnished because it wasn't perfect. Or he
correct.
gets to go on the Michael Jordan path. And I know it sounds odd, but the Michael Jordan path requires you to be good in a shorter period of time, whereas the LeBron path requires excellence across the board. And you can't to do both. Like, let's say in 15 years' time, we're somehow podding because we actually made it and the millions of people are caring about our morning. And if we're talking about Luka and he's like, not only did he do the Michael Jordan thing where he went like 7 or 8-0, but he also beat LeBron statistically, then like no one will touch him then. Like, but I think we both understand that's a lot of work on either track or both tracks
I
to
think
get there. So
I think now you've dropped Michael's name, and I like to. I'm clearly in that, and always have been in that boat. I guess in that sense, and maybe because that was my era, and I got to watch him play. It's grainy highlights, I guess, back then, before pre-internet, pretty much clearly that um, that maybe an area that's not really talked about. Okay, in why we consider him the GOAT as well. But longevity is because LeBron has played 21 seasons now, yeah, and he keeps going. Yes, he keeps putting up the stats, even though maybe he's not as effective as he is, across the board and whatever win share and all these other things that you can track metrics. Okay, but Jordan walked away from the game for 2 years. Yeah, this was who's already the best player by far by the time he completed that first three-peat. And yes, there was some level of personal tragedy and things like that occurred, absolutely, okay. But the fact that he just walked away from the game and said, "No, that's it," and then he won another three, and then walked away again. Like, I think there's the level of folklore that you got to look into this whole context of a GOAT that, wow, this guy was so good. He won three, walked away, played baseball, was crap at that, came back, just won three more again pretty much straight away when he got his next full season, okay, and then just decided to walk away again. He just didn't want to go play at another organization and wasn't interested, even though then he decided, oh look, I'm keen to just come back and just shoot around a bit with the Wizards for who knows what, okay, but that's what he did, and donated I think his salary to charity for that season. I don't know. It was almost that casualness that LeBron never presented, that, oh my God, I tried so damn hard. I rocked up to work every day for 21 years and I got 4 rings. Like, A for effort, but, I still didn't even get to 6. That's I don't know, man. I think that it's a whole it's a whole package here. And again, it's whichever metrics you want to choose. Yeah, sure. Who played the most games? LeBron. Who scored the most points? LeBron. Who's got the biggest rebound average and assist average? LeBron. My God, I don't know. Whatever. Who's got the most finals appearances? LeBron. I don't know. Sure. You can choose all these metrics to choose LeBron. I'm not arguing that. And great achievements. Second greatest of all time.
I think, look, let's hope we have a competitive finals, right? Because last season it was a gentleman's sweep where the 1 seed just destroyed the 8 seed. This should be a little bit more competitive. We've got 2 duos going up. We've got some plot lines to talk about, and we will have a young superstar crowned and be able to talk about that. 6 games. It doesn't matter if Boston wins, if Dallas wins. We all want 6 games. We always want more NBA, especially when this is over. It's officially the off season, which, I guess concludes our NBA Finals chat until we get a game played, which is still almost a week away.
Well, I guess maybe leading into second graders all time, we're talking about we were going to do a little bit of a bonus section here, right? Because after last week's hardy debate here about Kyrie and Scottie Pippen, you got a top 5 list, is that right for me? Like your top 10 was a little bit time elusive there, which is fine. This is fine. I'm happy to go top 5, but then I felt like I had to condense my list a little bit. That was a little bit of a challenge, man. I don't know. Do you want to go first? Do we want to go one at a time? What do you think? What's your thought here? We are talking about greatest sidekicks of all time because clearly LeBron is Kyrie's greatest sidekick of all time.
Are you deliberately saying stuff to put in a short so we can somehow get that? Look, the reason why I was a little bit time poor. Again, the lack of millions of people promoting me to do this kind of homework leaves it on the back burner, and then time ran away from me. But did give you a top 5. I don't know about you, but when I was trying to compile this list and when I was thinking about it, the trap was go straight to titles, obviously, and the best number 2 has to have some titles there. And then I kind of viewed it as, well, they had to be the second best player on that title team.
No,
and
it's a sidekick, though. They don't necessarily have to be second best, sidekick. So basically, anyone that's not the best player.
So this is the thing. This list that I'm about to give to you is surprisingly quite star-studded. And I'll make my case for each of them, but we'll see where we come to. So we're gonna go 5 to 1, yeah? We're gonna go that way.
Sure, yeah.
That builds the suspense for people, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right. With my top 5, I'm beginning off with Dwayne Wade. So Dwayne Wade was, obviously able to get an individual championship in 2006 with Shaq being his sidekick. But once LeBron came to town, obviously it ended up turning into LeBron's team. And I think Dwayne Wade was phenomenal in those series, still averaging that over 25 and 5 sort of mindset. And really kind of having that clutch gene that we've talked about a little bit that LeBron maybe lacks, and able to close some games, close some series for him. Obviously, LeBron was super dominant in that Miami run, but I think it's obviously Dwayne Wade sits as number 2 for that. So he's my 5th pick.
Well, funny because Dwayne Wade did not make my top 5 list. Sorry, Dwayne Wade. It was a tough one. What he's got 3 rings, and like you said, rings matter. And he obviously was. There's an argument to be made here. Was he a sidekick with that first ring? Yeah, because what was he? Who was he? Shaq's sidekick. Yeah, but that was old Shaq, and was that the coming out party that this is alpha Dwayne Wade? I don't know. That's the argument to be made there potentially. So I have at number 5 actually another Shaq partner or teammate here, which is Kobe. I have Kobe at number 5. Obviously 3 rings when Shaq was in his prime, and clearly this is young Kobe, and he was clearly a sidekick for those 3-peat that the Lakers put together there in the early 2000s. So yeah, look, I have him number 5. I'm curious if he's on your list at some point.
He's on my list, but he's not at number 4. At number 4, I'm going to put the all-time leader in 3 points made, Steph Curry. And this is an interesting one, but bear with me here. Bear with me here, because I hate this. I hate this reaction every time I say something, and you never let me get what I need to get out. Steph Curry did not win Finals MVP on 3 of the 4 Finals trips that he's made. The Iguodala one is ridiculous. So that shouldn't count against him. But, it's a fact and you have to introduce facts into the debate. But that little mini dynasty with Kevin Durant, he was the second best player on that team. And I understand that he was pivotal to their culture and everything, and that's how KD got there. But if we're being to the law, letter to the law here, I'm getting flashbacks to our very first podcast with Westbrook as a winner because of how literal I'm taking this. But Steph Curry was the best number 2 option on that team, and he averaged close to 30 points and phenomenal 3-point shooting. But according to the best sidekick thing, that was his sidekick moment.
That's the worst take I've ever heard from you, and you've had some terrible takes. Steph Curry as a number 2 option. Did you omit the fact that he also won 2 MVPs? Sure, he did not.
There's other MVPs. Hold on, there's other MVPs on this list.
Yeah, but
if you don't
what I'm trying to say here is that you're trying to use the narrative that he didn't win 3 NBA finals out of the 4, so therefore he's a sidekick. Yet 2 of those seasons he won MVP. Yeah. And he was utterly dominant. And you could say that Iguodala robbed him of that MVP, which was a wholly, a whole other sort of situation. But that Iguodala's stats were not significant in that sort of sense, but was his contribution in the box score, plus minus, etc., influential? Perhaps so. I think, and at the end of the day, if you want to say Steph Curry was a sidekick to KD, yeah, if you want to say Steph Curry was a sidekick to KD, sure, but that only yielded 2 rings. So I think trying to put Steph Curry at any point in his career, or any significant point in his career, as a sidekick, you're pushing a fine line here, which is funny because I have another Golden State Warrior here at number 4. Yeah, and you're probably already going to think about that name in your head, and you're going to say, surely he's not going to say Draymond Green, because I'm saying Draymond Green is number 4, the best sidekick in the last, what are you talking about here, 30 years? Yeah, that we're sort of looking at right now, because that's roughly how long we've been alive to watch the NBA. that without him, the Warriors wouldn't have had 4. Yeah, and it's not because obviously he scores a lot, anything like that, but he's been the catalyst of a sidekick and playing a role player in those 4 rings for the Warriors. Okay, and I thought about this, I think he is more important than Clay. And without Clay, sure, they lose that edge and they lose that second Hall of Famer. Absolutely, Clay's going to be a Hall of Famer. Yeah, that's the reality. Okay, but Draymond is still more important than Clay. And look, if you took Clay out and when KD came across here, so we're talking Steph, KD, and Draymond, that's probably still enough to win a ring.
Do you notice the difference between the two of us when you say something ridiculous that I at least let you go, versus when I say something ridiculous, you kind
Excuse me, are you saying that Draymond is a ridiculous pick? Please break it down.
Obviously, Draymond has a really important role to play. I just think the conversation around him is different. I don't think he's a sidekick, so to speak. I'd almost put him in that Swiss Army knife conversation. All right. Because the thing is, with basketball, there's 4 players that are technically your sidekick, right? Assuming that they played at the second best of potential.
Yeah.
I think with Draymond is in the Dennis Rodman tier, right? Dennis Rodman was important to the Bulls and important to the Pistons, but
he was a sidekick though.
No, but everyone's a sidekick by that logic. Okay, we're not talking about the extended DC universe here, where it's not just a Robin, but it's also Catwoman.
You're talking about there are when there's 5 players on the floor and you've got one number 1 option, then there's 4 sidekicks.
Then why is the KD pick back? Why is the KD pick back? Because KD was the best player on the floor, so Steph Curry is by default.
But that only yielded 2 rings. That only yielded 2 rings.
That's fine. That's enough for my list. All right, let's do number 3. Number 3, Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant for me because he has 3 championships in this sidekick tallying system. And obviously a young, non-prime Kobe hanging out with Shaq at his ultimate dominance. Could have had 4, but at that point, was he the better player of the 2? Obviously, Kobe probably got carried to that first one and then ends up kind of coming into his own for 2 and 3. and goes on to obviously win his own individual ones. And funnily enough, was an MVP, but still is a sidekick according to your own logic. So you've already made the case for Kobe at 5. I put him at 3. I think we're already in chronic disagreement.
I forgot how much fun it was making top 5 or 10 lists with you, man. It's been a little while here. Because at number 3, I have someone that has more rings than Kobe here. I believe he has 5, count them on his finger, including 1 Finals MVP. I'm talking about Tony Parker.
Okay.
I'm talking about Tony Parker. Clearly, he's a sidekick to Tim Duncan. I don't think you're going to debate that one too hard.
I'll debate it a little bit.
and then you'll probably go like Ginobili was more important.
Yeah, Ginobili, man.
And look, at the end of the day, I think he was a huge part of the Spurs dynasty there. And yeah, look, I got Tony Parker at 3. You tell me why that's not a good pick.
It's not a good pick because I guess the Spurs, maybe, you know what, actually, I understand the pick. It's probably similar to how we discussed the Golden State Warriors. The Golden State Warriors were a dynasty, right? Stretched over a good period of time, probably close to 10 years. And different people at different stages fill different roles, right? So when I reference Steph Curry being the 1B to Kevin Durant, that's a different role than when he was the 1A, right? And Iguodala gets a Finals MVP because of his specific role. Klay Thompson always doing his thing. Draymond doing his thing. Even Wiggins was in that conversation for the last one. I think the problem with the Spurs, Ginobili is a conversation piece, but for one of those championships, Kawhi was the talking point as well. And then David Robertson, not that he was around during Tony Parker's run, but he was a part of it as well. And the role players that come in for San Antonio, I think the hard part with them, in terms of, I think we've lost our sidekick conversation. I thought we were picking Robins. I thought we were picking guys that if Batman dies, Robin's going to carry you there. And yet we're just naming anybody in the extended universe.
No. That's I think you know what? This is where you needed to give me a page of terms and conditions on what we're picking here, because I was like, is this a number 2 option or is this a sidekick? And as far as I'm concerned, a number 2 option, there's only one number 2 option, because then I guess there's a number 3, number 4, number 5 option on the floor. Okay, at least, yeah. But a sidekick is anywhere from 2 to 5, and you make the argument about Kawhi was probably the number 2 option for that last ring that the Spurs won. I'm probably not going to debate that. Yeah, but for at least, I'm just trying to think back here, 4 out of the 5 that they won, you'd have to say Tony Parker was probably number 2. I don't know. You could probably then make an argument was Ginobili like more influential in one of those series or not. Maybe. So then maybe you could say 3. I don't know. That's the part where it's really interesting point, which is then now where you would then you could probably have a much greater case that Kobe moves up that list even higher, because it's really, really clear. Because it's the same point like you chose Dwayne Wade, and I'm sort of saying that I took him off my list. He did not make my top 5 because you could argue that first ring he won, he was not a sidekick. He was just clearly a sidekick to LeBron, not to Shaq.
They're all valid points, right? And we didn't specify the terms and conditions. And unsurprisingly, maybe this is, maybe if someone was willing to give us a breakdown of like, where do we go wrong as a podcast, trying. Maybe it's because we don't have strong terms and conditions on our top 5 or 10 list.
Well, like Michael Jordan, we don't give a shit.
Are you're getting your shorts? Sorry, my bad. You're getting your shorts ready. I'm gonna come in with number 2 here, and I think I'm going to need you to mute yourself because I don't think you're going to be able to contain it here. I'm worried you're going to...
I'm going to have an outburst. Hold on. Come on, quick. I'm sitting down.
So, unsurprisingly, with how my list is operated here, Dwayne Wade, Steph Curry, obviously being good enough to lead their team to a championship, but then sometimes not. My number 2 best sidekick, specifically on a couple of seasons, is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, because it was Magic Johnson's team for the entire of the 80s. And I know that Kareem individually did some very significant things. Unstoppable shot, all-time leading scorer until last season. 6 rings, was the GOAT conversation prior to LeBron coming along, but he was not the best player on that team several times. And also a very stacked team, similar to how we talked about Golden State and San Antonio as well. So I'm putting him, funnily enough, number 2 as the number 2 best player.
How many games did you watch Kareem play?
How many games did I watch Kareem play?
Yeah.
Like in person, in
Uh,
real life,
How about real time?
in real time? You wouldn't believe it, but it's going to come out at a solid zero.
I thought we weren't going that far back, but hey, sure.
I've gone that far
If you've just gone back to the way back machine here and into the archives to pluck Kareem out of that list, I feel like there's probably a whole bunch of Celtics that probably qualify as sidekicks. In the Larry Bird era, just like you could call every teammate of Magic Johnson a sidekick in that sort of sense. Probably not going to argue that. How influential they were or impactful in those sort of eras for these championship teams, man, I don't know because I paid no attention. So, look, good on you, man. You've gone back into history there. I had no reaction because, I was trying to even recall who that player was, but that's okay. Kareem, yeah, I do know who he is because I have at number two Scottie Pippen. At number two, Scottie Pippen, clearly
Oh,
six
okay.
rings, clearly a sidekick, clearly number two option. Probably can't debate it too hard that he should be on this list. You have him at number one. So
Yeah, I
now
do.
the only mystery here is that who do I have at number one? But hey, look,
Well,
you tell me like you
let's
tell me why Scottie Pippen is number one for you? Yeah, he's just because surely.
let's let's really unpack that because you're obviously talking about the guy that had six rings, double dynasty there, and wasn't able to do it individually. So clearly the number two option,
Mhm, mhm.
the entire time. Um, yeah, yeah. I actually don't know what you're gonna add. I don't know what you're gonna add, so I'm gonna go.
Would you? So you throw it back to me now? Is that what you're trying to say? Is that you throwing it back to me right now?
Yeah,
Okay. At number one, do you know who I'm gonna say here? I'm just curious. Can you tell me? Do you know where I've trended towards here, and who I've got number one? I'm just curious. Like, there's not. It's let's be clear. I didn't pick like I don't know.
we haven't went back to the 50s clearly, so I am curious.
Fine. At number one, as the most important sidekick in the last 30 years that I have watched, is someone that has 7 rings. Big
Oh,
Shot
all right.
Rob,
Yeah, okay.
Big
All
Shot
right.
Rob Horry was part of 3, you could almost say, eras of NBA championships with the Rockets, all right, with the Lakers, and with the Spurs. And without him and his moments, yeah, he's not just, oh my God, I was highly fortunate that I ended up as a 10th option on these teams and won a whole bunch of rings. All right, he was a core rotational player, therefore making him a sidekick. Was he number two? No, but that's clearly an area here we didn't define specifically. And he was a sidekick in all of his career. Literally, he was never number one. Yeah, at any point. But he was not only in the right teams, but he also contributed in the right moments. And to me, if we're making this list here of the most important sidekicks, I have Rob Horry at number one.
I can see that. I think maybe I went for like I'm drafting a talented team of top five players, and that's why I ended up with that. And Robert Horry did make the list, but you're right. Like Robert Horry did it on multiple teams. But I do worry that he's more like a role player. But again, this really brings into the integrity of our list because this is all about what qualifies as a sidekick. So
What qualifies as a sidekick? It's just not your best player on the team. And today you dropped a huge doozy there. Like Steph Curry was not the best player on his team. My God, I can't. I I found that a very interesting take, especially when you tried to include the pre or post KD days. I see you got
I
nothing
got
left to say.
I own what I said,
That's
man.
it.
I
We're
said what
done.
I said.
See